G'day and welcome back to FNMPN. I'm MP Numbers. Let's have a look at what's been happening in Magic this week. Today is March the 30th and there's really not a major amount of news. We're going to quickly have a look at some spoilers. We're going to talk about the handshake thing, just a small piece, don't turn off. We're going to look at the Planeswalker deck, Planeswalkers that came out, the new logo, and we've got some questions from the community as well. So first of all, obviously Dominaria is coming. It's a couple of weeks away, and as always, we're going to get spoilers. Spoilers. Now, all up, having looked at all these cards that have been spoiled through various means, nothing really stands out to me as overly exciting. You know, there's the new Wizards Lightning Bolt, the new Wizards Counterspell, which basically act as Counterspell and Lightning Bolt if you have a wizard. We're seeing more sagas, which their art just looks so fantastic. But otherwise, there's a bunch of creatures, a bunch of normal stuff. The new White Knight, Black Knight cycle is the worst one so far. And I'm just hoping to see a bit more. Probably the biggest takeaway is that there is some cool lore, some cool throwbacks, and some nice little refreshers on things that we already know about. Now, I'll take a second here to reiterate the fact that I think the legendary sorceries are cool in theory, but just will not see gameplay and not make any major impact on any standard format or any legacy, like limited or modern format at all. Possibly Commander. I don't know if about Commander, but it's just not going to see impact. Sagas, again, look great, but the more I see of them, the less and less excited I am about them. Most of them, as a limited player, probably unplayable. Not overly excited. There's some that are just going to smash it, but yeah, generally just not overly excited. Alright, now before we look at some more product stuff, we're going to talk about the Handshake controversy that's been going around. And if you're on social media, you've heard about this, you're probably sick of hearing about this. I'm going to give my quick 2 cents and go from there. Basically what happened on coverage, I believe it was at SCG, somebody won a big important match. I think they were playing for top 8 or top 4. The winner tried to shake the opponent's hand. The opponent said no and walked away. I think actually said no twice. My personal opinion is that the handshake should be offered as a concession from the loser, but there's no reason to decline it unless your opponent's been an absolute toss or the games were completely unfair and just a total washover. So I would never offer a handshake as a winner, but I would never refuse it either. Marshall Sutcliffe on his MTG Breakdown channel really goes in depth into this. If you want to have a look, if you haven't heard enough about the handshake thing, check that out. Links in the description, of course. And as always, let me know what you think. Do you always shake hands? Do you always GG? Would you refuse if you were the loser and the opponent offered? Now, looking through, the other things that were released this week were the Planeswalkers for the Planeswalker decks. We got Teferi, and we got Chandra. Now, these cards themselves, not overly exciting. They're both 6 mana for 5. They're not going to see constructed play. There'll be a few times at FNM when someone will buy this Planeswalker deck and play it. Our players should hopefully have some fun and people should feel a bit of a theme. Now, the big thing that came around with this conversation this week was a bit of controversy around one of the cards in the Teferi deck, which was Nyambi, probably pronouncing it wrong, Faithful Healer. Now, in terms of a character, it's a legendary creature. It's Teferi's daughter, and her ability is that when she enters the battlefield, she fetches Teferi. There's always a fetcher in these Planeswalker decks. I think it's kind of cool that they made it a legendary creature, being that it is the legendary set, and it puts a little bit of flavour around it. Now, in saying that, I can understand the major female character we've seen so far is just there to get her dad, even though she's supposed to be a doctor, a scholar, all that kind of stuff. And I can understand it personally. I don't see it, but again, coming from my position, I don't really have a voice in that, so I'm not going to take away anyone's right to be upset with that. Moving forward, another story that came up on the mothership was in regards to the official launch of Magic's new logo. Now, obviously, it's a 25-year-old company, and they've had this same logo that we all know and love on the back of the cards. Important to note, they will not be changing that logo. They cannot change that logo because you wouldn't be able to play with old cards and new cards without being sleeved, and they can't force you to sleeve, therefore it's an issue. There was a mock-up done again over on the mothership, which was done by Ultra Pro, which showed a reimagined card back, and apparently these sleeves are going to be available, and I don't hate them. I saw a lot of negativity, people moving away from the font, worrying about the recoloring, but personally, look, I'm a fan. Again, this is not an official card back. This is a sleeve, which is Ultra Pro's imagining of what the new logo, which is on the card there, would look like if the game was made today. As always, let me know what you think. I think the logo is fine. It needed an update. It was getting a bit stale, and yeah, it's pretty cool font and pretty cool setup. Now, I'm going to finish up with some community questions. Now, we've had a couple of questions come through from the community, and as always, anytime through the week, hit me up with hashtag FNMPN, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, wherever you might find me. Ask me questions, get my opinions, and I'll happily talk about them on here. Starting with Spencer. Now, quick aside here, Spencer is a guy who made an MTG Arena overlay. So if you have any interest in streaming MTG Arena on Twitch, make sure you hit him up. It's a fantastic overlay that shows your deck and shows the cards are available, kind of like what you see the Hearthstone streamers use. So make sure you check him out and have a chat with him. So Spencer asks, what are your favourite build-arounds? And auto any round first picks for MTGDOM drafts. So that answers the first part of that question. So for me, it's 3 cards. It's the combination of Bogbrew Witch, Bubbling Cauldron, and Festering Newt, which all work together to do awesome things with sacrificing. In the original format it was in, they also had a bunch of threaten effects, so take control of your target opponent's creature. And the first deck that I ever put together, which was actually a cohesive archetype, was the Steel and Sack archetype back, I think it was M14, don't quote me on that. And I managed to win a tournament with it, and I think it was actually a pretty big tournament. So actually having all those cards come to me, having to put the archetype together and being able to win, that makes it my favourite build around. Now, I will admit, after that first time I did it, I tried to build the Steel and Sack deck again and again, but because people realised how it worked and it was really bloody good, I couldn't get it ever again and end up building these really horrible decks with a whole bunch of steel outlets and nothing to do, or a whole bunch of sack outlets and nothing to do with it. As for the second question, are there any round first picks for MTG DOM drafts? I think we're still too early in the format to really say there is. I don't think any of the sagas or rares that we've seen yet are really that first pickable. We'll come back to this question once we have more information on the set. Project MTG has asked, how do we feel saga cards are going to play in the standard format when MTG DOM drops? This is an interesting question. Again, we haven't seen all of the saga cards yet. But from what I've seen, I don't think it's going to make a major impact on any, especially the competitive standard scene. Obviously, they will exist in some fashion, in some form, through casual Magic, through FNM Magic, and as we go. But yeah, I really haven't seen any sagas that are super great. They're all cool, and they will find places in some formats. But as for competitive standard, I don't think it's going to happen quite yet. And final question this week comes from MTG Biggie, asking what's my take on Mox Amber. Can we community break it, at least make it playable in any format? Or will it be a piece of bulk that doesn't even live up to its name's legacy? This question is asking about a card that was brought up in the release note. So if you're not someone who's following that, if you only want to look at the official spoilers, probably turn off now, because this is the last question anyway. This is a mock-up of the card, so it's a zero-cost mox, same as all the mox, and it adds 1 mana of any colour among legendary creatures or planeswalkers you control. I don't think this card is going to make an impact in any format. I think there are maybe some commander decks which are going to want it, but I still think it's not as good as like Sol Ring and the normal mana rocks that you're going to see in there. It's just so often going to be a nothing. It's not even like Mox Opal, where a great draw can make it a super powerhouse. It's obviously not one of the original Moxes because they're just amazing. And it's just like if it had maybe a second ability to tap to add mana, but even just a colorless mana that you could only use to spend on legendary permanents or legendary spells, then it would be maybe even too good. But yeah, look, in the state that it is, I think this is going to definitely be a bulk rare, a bulk mythic. And I'm probably going to be disappointed to open it in a draft. And I don't think it's ever going to see play. Prove me wrong, people. If you think there's any decks out there, if I'm completely off here, definitely let me know. Drop a comment, see what you think. Let Biggie know see if he can break it. And we'll go from there, hey? Alright, so that's the show, FNMPN for March 30th. Thanks for tuning in. As always, please jump in comments. Let me know what you think about anything we've talked about today. Find me on Twitter, find me on Facebook. Jump in and join me on Twitch sometime. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.